Welcome to part 5 of our live training session here with our 2011 Evo 10 GSR. In our last video, we mapped out the vehicle on our higher ethanol content to over 800 horsepower. So everything is dialed in at this point. What we're going to be doing in this video, focusing on checking the cold start and the cranking enrichments, making sure they're right on the higher ethanol content now that is in our fuel system. Now we've let the engine sit overnight, so it's going to be a confirmation that we have everything dialed in. We're also going to be taking a look at some drivability data logs off the chassis dyno to proof what we've done on the dyno to make sure everything is dialed in. Then we're also going to be learning how to set up our launch control with the anti-lag within the Teffer V3 ROM. We want to make sure that this builds boost, it doesn't bog when we're trying to launch it at the drag strip. So there's a whole bunch of things to cover within this video. Let's jump in so we can check them out. Welcome back to day 3 of our live training session here with our Evo 10. Now in the last video we dialed in our flex fuel tuning. We know that the engine's going to run properly when it's come up to operating temperature. We know on the pump gas yesterday we checked the cold starting, it fired up and had a decent air fuel. We didn't really have to adjust anything. Now we're going to be checking the cold start here on E85. This is super important. We'll find that oftentimes we require a lot more fuel than we anticipate when we're going in and running ethanol-based fuel. Now we did build out our cranking enrichment table. That's what we have for fuel that provides the fuel command to the fuel injectors to deliver the fuel into the engine. We used our Excel spreadsheet calculator based on the injector size and based on going up to E85 or 85% ethanol that we needed a certain amount of cranking fuel. We've populated that table out in our software here. Let's go in and just double check and know what we're talking about here. So the Teffer XMod V3, we'll find we're in these alternate map slots. We take a look down here, we're going to see we have an alternate 1 cranking enrichment injector pulse width adder here. So this is the parameters that we went in and we copied and pasted again from our data sheet, Excel spreadsheet calculator, and we placed into this table here. We know on a warm engine, it seemed to be starting just fine. We had no issues. Now we're going to be checking it at 68 degrees and cooler. Right now it's about 68 to 70 degrees here in the garage. So we're going to see if we need more fuel. Now, we probably do, but I don't want to go and just assume that we need more fuel. We're going to go and actually try this. So if it cranks over and it fires off and it runs, then we'll find that our cranking table here is fine. If we crank it and we need a lot of cranks to let it fire off and start, that means that we need to go in and add some additional fuel here, specifically on our cranking enrichment table. We should find that the warm-up enrichment is still going to be relevant. We should see the air fuels being reasonable because we know in pump gas everything was good, and that with our flex fuel we're just going in and rescaling our main injector scaler. So everything from idle, part throttle, wide open throttle, all of that's been accounted for already. And we'll find that in that warm-up state. If it warmed up and it ran properly on pump gas, it should do the exact same thing here on ethanol. It's just the cranking that's a huge difference. Now, the reason why there's so much of a difference on an ethanol-based fuel is because the fuel atomizes very poorly on ethanol compared to petrol when the engine is cold. So when we're on petrol fueled, we still need to deliver more cranking fuel and additional warm-up enrichment because we have this thing called a wall wetting effect where the fuel sticks to the intake valve and the intake track. It doesn't get into the engine as efficiently as when the engine comes up to operating temperature and the fuel atomizes more reasonable, and it's going to be easier to deliver fuel into the engine. When the engine's cold, we need to go overcome that, and that's why we need to have additional fuel on our cranking. That's why we see the cranking tables have, just even looking in these default values we placed in from our calculator, we see that they're much higher here on the colder temperatures. So let's go and fire this off. Let's see if it wants to fire off and run, and then we'll see if we have to go and change anything. And then we'll make these adjustments and kind of keep going with the process here. So I'm going to go and close this out. I'm going to jump here into my Evo Scan so we can capture the data as we're allowing the engine to fire up and run. Let's see what's going to happen here. Let me go to my start data logger and make sure I'm out of gear here. Let's just crank it and see what's going to happen. So let's see if it's going to fire. So it took a little bit more cranks to get it to fire, but not bad. Let's let it run here for a brief second. Now the wideband hasn't came online right now, so we can see this is showing that it's full lean. Looking at my wideband gauge, this is already reading. It should come online here from the serial stream output. It's in the 13s and 14 air fuel. It actually is warming up here perfect. It sounds great. It's nice and smooth. We can see right here it's in the 14s, and we do see the short-term fuel trims automatically kicking in here and starting to trim that out. So that looks great. I think the cranking fuel needs maybe a little bit more fuel, but it's not terrible. When we take a look down here at our coolant temperature, if we move down here a little bit, we'll see here that our coolant temp is right now at 90 degrees. Taking a look at the ambient temperature again in the garage here, it's roughly 70 degrees. So we would need to go in and check this when the engine, the ambient temperature got even colder. It may need some additional fuel, but so far that's a reasonable amount. And what I was telling you before when we were talking about going in and using that calculator, it gets you. Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here. And you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.